right-wing media. And some of it, by the way, is the left. It is the media of the left, right? Like the first couple years, there's been so many moments where my great frustration, I think, in the way politics is talked about is often people do not want to do the work of figuring out who's actually responsible, right? Like Republicans will shut down the government, and mainstream sources will say Washington gridlock continues, right?
Here we go. Pod Save America. This is a podcast that is on the corporate side. So you're seeing a corporate Democrat clash. This is a unique one for the after show carnage. You've got someone who purports themselves to be what I would call a populist left in Hasan Piker. You have someone who is obviously corporate Democrat with Pod Save America. It's a podcast that came out of former Barack Obama staffers. Podcast, it airs 3 days a week, and it basically is the flagship show of corporate who thinks they are the corporate-based left. Let's look at the clash between Pod Save America and Hasan Piker. Let's do it. Let's go.
Or Joe Biden will be stymied in some way, or Barack Obama will be stymied. Why didn't Barack Obama do this? Why didn't Barack Obama do that when he had a majority, right? And we said, well, because it's actually, you know what? In the Senate, having 49 votes to get rid of the filibuster and having 50 votes to get rid of the filibuster is a difference between doing a ton of shit and not being able to do anything. That's not the fault of 49 people. That's the result of one person. Yeah.
Can I bring up something really quick? This conversation that you and I are having, have you ever heard a Republican have this conversation?
Well, what do you mean? Like Republicans don't talk this way?
Have you ever heard a Republican go, sorry, we couldn't get this done because we simply did not have the votes?
It's interesting how he's talking about it. I probably agree with Hasan Piker here, but we got to flesh this out. Before I do that, I know I've had issues when I do these recordings late at night, and I do have issues slurring and getting things, saying the wrong names and taking the wrong angle. I mean a different angle, but I say a different angle, basically like Joe Biden. I'm getting old. But so I'm not trying to, be like I'm perfect or something, but is something going on with Hasan Piker? Because I watched old clips of him, and he's a debate bro guy at heart, and he was more crisp. I don't know if he's sleepy or he sounds like me doing the live. This recording is 2 a.m. Mountain right now. I'm off topic completely, but I've just now started to watch more Hasan Piker. I want to do more Hasan Piker reactions. Here he is on Pod Save America. This is a big one. They go back and forth. This is a really good pod right here. But I don't know what's going on with him. Let's bring it back. I want to talk about his take here. Let's bring it back. Bring it back. Alexa, bring it back.
49 votes to get rid of the filibuster and having 50 votes to get rid of the filibuster is a difference between doing a ton of shit and not being able to do anything. That's not the fault of 49 people. That's the result of one person. Yeah.
Can I bring up something really quick? This conversation that you and I are having, have you ever heard a Republican have this conversation?
Well, what do you mean? Like Republicans don't talk this way?
Have you ever heard a Republican go, sorry, we couldn't get this done because we simply did not have the votes? Is that ever like a real significant front-facing public conversation that the Republicans have?
So this is where I'm confused, and I get a lot of feedback from Hasan Piker fans, and I agree with him sometimes. I'm not even really against him. I don't understand. Corporate Republicans are the same as corporate Democrats. And you're talking to a corporate Democrat. So it's almost like the populist left wants to be with the Democrats. When you look at MAGA, for example, the populist right, they don't want to be Republicans. They want them out of there. They're going to war with Murkowski and Ernst and Tom Hillis and all those, basically Mitch McConnell's and all of them. The populist right treats Mitch McConnell the same as Nancy Pelosi. I know there's some inconsistencies there because they cheered Mike Pompeo, they cheered Lindsey Graham, whatever. in a way. They don't cheer Lindsey Graham. They just let him slide. They're basically letting Marco Rubio slide. So I got it. But and so the same is, let's just say the people who support Hasan Piker would say I'm wrong about MAGA. Fine. Let's say I'm wrong about MAGA. He's doing the same thing. Corporate Republicans are the same as corporate Democrats. So why would you even use a point like, well, do you ever see the Republicans do that? You need to say MAGA if you're going to say that. Do you ever see MAGA doing that? Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I feel like you want the answer to be no, but like I do think the answer is yes.
I can't recall a time. Maybe no. I'm asking you.
No, I think on their side, like I think they have over the last decade slowly but surely gotten rid of the people who are pointing out the actual things that stand in their way,
Yeah,
right?
they
went
whip
after
their
Kevin
votes better.
McCarthy. They went out. Well, yeah.
Yeah, so now I agree with Pod Save America more here than Hasan Piker. See, he's trying to break it down between Kevin McCarthy and then Donald Trump. People thought Kevin McCarthy was going to weasel his way into Donald Trump's administration. To my knowledge, he has not.
Yeah, and sometimes that works. Sometimes that leaves them like pretty well stuck. I mean, like Donald Trump was president for 4 years. He wanted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. He didn't have the votes, right? There was a big conversation about why he didn't have the votes. That there have been the Republican base furious with spending bills that were passed, right?
What did Donald Trump do after when John McCain struck down the Affordable Care Act?
With the thumbs down.
What did he do?
He took out the individual mandate regardless.
Executive
He did.
order.
Well, he did what the same thing a Democratic president would do. Do as much as you can legislatively, and when it fails, use your executive power, which is what Biden has done on student loans and a bunch of other issues.
Yeah. So my point is, he
what-
still got the most significant aspect of his, agenda across, and in the process, he utilized the bully pulpit to laser John McCain nonstop.
Yep.
And effectively bully John McCain in a way that I've never seen a Democratic president turn around and communicate about Joe Biden. I'll hear it about the left, about how they're naysayers, how they're spoilers. I never hear it about conservative Democrats. And I think it's the coalition.
We talk about that.
It's the coalition that you want to have, is my point. And I think Democrats, win or lose, want to win by their own established policies and the way that they want to win, and they're willing to lose if necessary, as long as they still maintain the overarching attitude that they have.
I just think that is,
or maybe they're just bad. And
No, I agree with that. That's a good point. What he's calling them woke in a different way, but I agree with that. Let's go back. Let's get back. Hasan Piker on with Pod Save America. Great podcast.
well, I just think that I think people need to be persuaded. Like David Plouffe talking to Pfeiffer yesterday. He's like, look, you go to a swing state, you got a certain percentage of liberals and progressives, you got a certain percentage of conservatives, and you got this vast swath of moderates. You need them. Now, I think where you're right is there is something about a Democratic establishment figures that feel more comfortable with a Liz Cheney sitting at the table than with a leftist sitting at the table.
It's gross.
And that the disagreements with Liz Cheney are more kind of are acceptable, and the disagreements to the left are less acceptable.
But one must ask the question, why is that acceptable? Liz Cheney is anti-LGBT. Liz Cheney is anti-abortion. Liz Cheney is...
Why is LGBT the first thing that comes out of your mouth, Hasan Piker? You're better than that. Why? Well, she's anti-LGBT. Who cares?
Liz Cheney sitting at the table.
That's your number one thing that comes out your mouth. If she's anti-LGBT. So the populist left agrees. Kamala Harris isn't. The populist left can't break free of the corporate left, for a lack of a better term, because of things like the LGBTQ.
Than with a leftist sitting at the table.
It's gross.
And that the disagreements with Liz Cheney are more kind of...
Let me tell you something, populist left. You're not doing anything until you let go of that LGBTQ stuff, man. That's not... Nobody cares. It shouldn't be a talking point. It's not an issue. I thought you were for the people. I thought you guys were for the people. I thought you guys wanted things. I thought you wanted universal health care. What the hell does that have to do with the LGBTQ? Amazon supports the LGBTQ. Every corporate company does.
Are acceptable and the disagreements to the left are less acceptable.
And I don't even know if Liz Cheney is now. I believe her sister is LGBTQ, but I don't even know if she is anti that now.
But one must ask the question, why is that acceptable? Liz Cheney is anti-LGBT. Liz Cheney is anti-abortion. Liz Cheney is anti-Democratic Party. Liz Cheney is the daughter of a rabid, warmongering, terrorist sociopath, Dick Cheney.
Yes.
And yet there are Democrats who are more comfortable with her than people who also would totally be on board with the Democratic Party, but I don't know, have maybe sometimes identical opinions of Liz Cheney on even LGBT issues. Like Joe Rogan is a great example of this.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party has consistently utilized and weaponized in the most cynical ways possible identity politics. And I say this as someone who is infinitely more progressive than the average Democrat on these issues. They just use it. They use it against Bernie. They use it against every single person, and now they're dropping it themselves. That makes every Democrat look like a silly fool. That makes it does. In the eyes of Americans, they go, you called us racist, you called us transphobic, you called us crazy, and now you're saying, okay, my bad, we got to drop this woke shit. Like, of course people are going to go, all right, I guess like I'm primed into now believing the Republicans. Like, you're pushing your base towards being more open-minded to right-wing policies. It's the only thing you're doing. And that's how and that's the only thing you're doing when you don't actually claw back a lot of the things that the Republicans, the former Republican administration, engages in. Like, Democrats are very good at trying to fix the deficit. They're the only real deficit hawks, right? Republicans certainly don't care. They only use it as a weapon to wield to communicate against the Democratic agenda.
I agree.
But outside of that, like on foreign policy, Joe Biden said he was going to be an effective foreign policy leader. He did NATO. He kept talking about, NATO Jack, AUKUS, as though that was going to be.
He loved talking about like I've never been more like nervous in politics, like other than the day before an election, than when Joe Biden was still in the race and he did that press conference. And he was like, he talked about AUKUS. It's like, no one knows what the fuck AUKUS is.
Yeah. Okay. That's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut.
But like Joe Biden was like, I'm the, adult in the room, Jack. I'm going to bring back America into the global stage. The way that the American public sees that is like, there's a war in Ukraine, right? And that's not even Joe Biden's fault. Like, I understand that. That's Vladimir Putin decided, I'm going to do the insane thing. I'm going to invade Ukraine.
What does that have to do with it?
Right?
So what? What does that have to? It is Joe Biden's fault. What the hell are you talking about? I'm gonna have to stop these guys. The left is a mess. That's my takeaway. I don't know what's going on with you guys. I don't know where your takes are. You're supposed to be anti-war, but you're like, I don't blame Joe Biden in Ukraine. Where are you guys at? Because there's no quote unquote brown people like in the Middle East. I don't know why the takes are so inconsistent. You're so passionate and arrogant about it. How is it not Joe Biden's fault? Who cares if the one guy wanted to invade the other one? That's not our country. Why do you care? I thought you were anti-war. Just a mess. Hasan Piker is a mess. Pod Save America is a mess. The left is a mess.